Welcome back to this special edition of Hannity. Trump versus the Swamp. Former FBI Director James Comey is continuing to downplay deep state corruption and the efforts to undermine President Trump, telling House lawmakers this week, quote, "Who cares?" when asked about the source of the phony Trump dossier that was bought and paid for by Hillary Clinton and her campaign. Also developing tonight, we're learning that any government shutdown will not affect, of course, Robert Mueller's probe's operations, and that the special counsel might actually wrap up the investigation as soon as mid-February. Yeah, we've heard that before. Joining me now for a reaction is author of the terrific book, License to Lie, former federal prosecutor Sidney Powell, along with Trump Campaign Advisory Board member and attorney Madison Gessiato. Good to have you both. So, Sidney,
good to be with you.
I have, in fact, a copy of the 173 pages of Comey's testimony on Monday, and I nearly fell out of my chair when I saw him say, "What difference does it make?" It was like the Hillary Clinton thing. What difference is it? Who cares that Hillary Clinton paid for it? And it was composed by a guy who admitted he'd do anything to stop Trump, meaning he'd lie, which is what the dossier was.
Yeah, that's a familiar line, isn't it, Greg? It has quite the ring to it since Mrs. Clinton herself used it. Unbelievable. Of course, the leaking, lying Comey only cares about James Comey and whatever narrative it is he wants to promote, including his primary job of covering up for Mrs. Clinton. So he's going to say whatever it is that promotes his own agenda and her cover-up. Absolutely appalling.
And Madison, that's not only appalling, but he lied to the Fisa court using exclusively the dossier, which he admits he hadn't verified. He deceived the Fisa judges by concealing the fact that it was paid for by Hillary Clinton and the Democrats. I'm willing to bet that the Fisa judges would have wanted to know that vital tidbit of information that Comey concealed.
You know, it's disingenuous and lazy at the very least, going back to Comey saying that the motivations or the origination of the dossier doesn't matter and that it wasn't worthy of more investigation. Of course, he knows better than that. We know better than that. And when we look at this dossier being used to obtain court permission to spy on an American citizen, it's absolutely appalling. He's an embarrassment to the FBI. He's an embarrassment to the American people. And quite frankly, people are sick of him. He loves to listen to himself talk. He's out for himself and only himself. He didn't do a good job at the FBI, and he's doing a terrible job right now, and I don't think he's very credible or trustworthy in the hearings.
So, Sidney, Comey's the guy who launched the Trump-Russia investigation without any evidence and spied on the Trump campaign by deceiving the court. So on Monday, he says, and he said this in his previous testimony, he can't recall who drafted the document that launched the investigation, never knew that Clinton paid for it. How could he not know? Bruce Orr's role? Gee, I don't know anything about that. Christopher Steele? I don't know anything about his involvement, the guy who wrote the dossier that Comey used. He is either the most clueless and incompetent FBI director in modern history, or he's lying. Which do you think?
I think it's actually both, Greg. He made material false statements to the Fisa court when he signed that affidavit saying it was a verified application to the Fisa court when he didn't do anything to verify any of it. Why he has not yet been prosecuted, I don't know, other than the entire Department of Justice and FBI are corrupt. I mean, somebody needs to be opening a grand jury investigation into Mr. Comey and all the Fisa abuses right now. It's got to be done.
Madison, he still is dodgy about whether or not among the 7 government documents he stole and leaked for the purpose of triggering his longtime friend Robert Mueller as the special counsel, he's still not really giving genuine, straight answers as to whether any among those 7 documents was classified and therefore leaking illegally classified information. It's really pretty astonishing.
Exactly. He claims to care about truth. He claims to want to share this truth with the American people. He's a leaker. He's a liar. And when we look at the FISA court abuse, this isn't something that just started with him. If we look back all the way to the early 2000s, there was, I think, over 70 FISA court judges that said they were misled by the FBI. This is an issue that has been needed to be addressed for almost 2 decades now. And this is just a prime example of why.
You know, the first time he testified, December 7th, most recent testimony, 245 times he said, I don't remember, I don't recall. Now, in the most recent 173-page document, in addition to those, I don't recall, I don't remember, it's, I don't know, I can't tell you, I won't tell you, that's classified. And beyond all of that, what struck me was he was so snarky and sarcastic, or as my grandmother used to say, smart aleck, toward members of Congress who were asking legitimate questions. Sid, what do you make of that?
That's his absolute hubris at its worst. He, like Mr. Mueller, hold themselves above all else and above the rule of law. They alone deem themselves fit to decide who is guilty, who is innocent, who is benefiting from a cover-up, who is entitled to their protection. It's beyond the pale.
He's a guy, Madison, who it's almost nauseous, his inflated sense of rectitude and self-righteousness. He pretends to be this noble and heroic figure. The truth is, he's anything but. Would you agree?
I 100% agree with you on that. He's extremely self-righteous. And when we look at the front of our Supreme Court, equal justice under law, this is something that him, Hillary Clinton, and so many others don't seem to want to respect anymore. It's a pivotal part of our country, and they should not be held above the law, and they certainly shouldn't look at themselves that way. And I think when we look at them and the way they're behaving, it shows that many of these people have been in corrupt D.C. for way too long, and that's another thing that needs to be changed that our president has been addressing for over 2 years now.
He cleared Hillary Clinton by twisting the law and contorting the facts, Sidney. And then he deceives the court to wiretap the Trump campaign. Then he steals government documents and conveys them to somebody unauthorized to trigger the special counsel. And he continuously gives false and misleading and evasive statements. Do you think he'll ever be held accountable?
He must be, Greg, if we're going to have if Americans can ever have any faith in the Department of Justice or the FBI again, he must be held to account.
Will Bill Barr do it?
He better. And don't forget, he agreed to destroy the evidence on Cheryl Mills and Heather Samuelson's laptop, and Mr. Mueller has destroyed evidence on Peter Strzok's and Lisa Page's cell phones. All of that is obstruction of justice and affects the Flynn and Manafort prosecutions. They destroyed Brady evidence on those cell phones and laptops.
You're right.
That has got to be held to account for that.
Yeah, and he gave immunity to 5 of Clinton aides in exchange for nothing. I've never heard of that
Exactly.
before. You don't
While
give
innocent
immunity
people are
in
being
exchange for
prosecuted.
zip. Unbelievable. All right, Madison Jessiato, Sidney Powell, thank you both. Coming up, Kristen Fisher gives us the latest out of Washington, D.C., and a miraculous story about our vets. You're not going to want to miss this one. Stick around.